Welcome back, my fellow brew bros and brew sisters. This is Magus of The Brew, number 5, the podcast where we cry Commodix Commander and crack them and cold ones at the same time. Today's commander is one of the newest Dominaria angels, Shalai, Voice of Plenty. And today we're drinking, well, isn't it obvious, the Angel City Brewery IPA. Today we are returning back to Dominaria of our brief detour into Battlebond, but I feel like since there were so many commanders, new commanders available in Dominaria, that set is still not done. So one of the ones that caught my eye was the Selesnya Angel, Shalai, Voice of Plenty. Shalai is a 3 and a white, legendary creature angel, 3/4, she flies. You, planeswalkers, and other creatures you control have hexproof, and which is a cool upside. But the main line of text here that we're really looking at is she has the activated ability of for 4 and 2 green, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Now she lends herself completely to infinite mana strategies and kind of pumping the entire team just to an infinite level to kill anybody. And with her colors being in the Selesnya color, she actually has the access to the 2 best infinite colored mana combos in the game. So this deck was a very obvious build around. We don't run any planeswalkers, to maybe the dismay of any viewers. We have no planeswalkers in the deck, so spoilers there. There's not a single planeswalker. And her hexproof ability is just kind of it's a little bit of icing on the cake to when you're swinging in with these monstrous Birds of Paradise. So as mentioned previously, we run 2 infinite mana combos in the deck. We run the Devoted Druid and Vizier of Remedies combo. Devoted Druid is a green and a 1. You can tap it to add 1 green mana to your mana pool. And you can untap it, but you have to put a -1/-1 counter on Devoted Druid. Now, Vizier of Remedies is a white and a 1, and if 1 or more -1/-1 counters be placed on a creature you control, remove 1 of them, I guess, at a time. So basically all this does, it allows you to freely tap your Devoted Druid and then untap it without having to pay the penalty of putting a -1/-1 counter on it. So you can do this an infinite number of times. And then you have infinite green mana to sink into the Shalai. Then beyond that, we play Bomberman Combo. Bomberman is Auriok Salvagers and Lion's Eye Diamond. Auriok Salvagers is a 3 and a white. I think it's a 2/4. And has the activated ability of you can pay a white and a 1. And return a artifact with converted mana cost 1 or less from your graveyard to your hand. And Lion's Eye Diamond costs 0. You sacrifice it, discard your hand, and add 3 mana of any color to your mana pool. This one's pretty obvious. You crack the LED for all white. Return it back with Auriok Salvagers, netting 1 white mana every single time. And then just replay it and keep doing this. Now, how this works, though, then, is because we need green mana. Obviously, once you have infinite white mana, you can make infinite green mana. I mean, it would technically be less from a mathematical perspective, but arbitrary numbers. So you'll be able to pump your team to an incredible level. To facilitate the combos in the deck, this deck runs pretty much every creature tutor available in the colors. We run Worldly Tutor, Survival of the Fittest, Sylvan Tutor, even Elodamri's Call. Just green has the best creature tutors in the game, so we utilize every single one of those. Then outside of that, since we are a creature combo focused deck, we are running a Rift Sweeper. Because Rift Sweeper, if one of our combo pieces gets exiled, since we have a lot of creature tutoring, we can then go find Rift Sweeper and bring whatever piece we need back. And then also, just because we're running infinite mana anyways, and it's fairly easy to facilitate in this deck, we're running Walking Ballista, because Walking Ballista is in fact a creature, and so easily tutorable, and is a good infinite mana sink because you can just play it and machine gun the whole table. And that will win you the game. Since the deck is running so many we run a lot of mana dorks in the deck, and mana dorks are useful. And actually, this is probably one of the best decks Birds of Paradise can be in, because we have a strange requirement of after making our creatures infinitely large, we have to swing in, and creatures with some type of evasion that are very low cost are very useful in this deck. So like Birds of Paradise, for example, flies actually. I mean, it's a 0/1, so you would never think about attacking with it. But when it is an infinitely large killer Birds of Paradise, then all of a sudden this gets more attractive. I cannot say the same for Llanowar Elves and Arbor Elf, but they still will get infinitely large in the deck. So we had to kind of look at creatures that are very low converted mana cost, but then also have some type of evasion attached to them, which is kind of a rare thing because you typically don't have creatures that are like a 1 cost with some type of evasion of any kind. So we are running, we have a few in here. We're running Ornithopter for 1 because it costs 0 and it flies, which is kind of funny because then you get to kill somebody with an Ornithopter. And then we run Xantid Swarm. Xantid Swarm actually serves an additional purpose of when you attack with it, your defending player cannot cast spells this turn. It's not as good, but it can protect your combo at least, but then you'll have to use your combat step. But it's like a nice inclusion in the deck because it's a pretty good card anyways. And once again, it flies. We run a few other ones. We run a Charging Badger because it is one of the few 1 green 1/1 tramplers, and so is Llanowar Elite, also another green and a 1/1 trampler. Run a few other ones. We run Soltari Foot Soldier because it's 1 white. I believe it's a 1/1 and has Shadow, so it can only be blocked by creatures also with Shadow. So basically unblockable. I think in pretty much the majority of the years of me playing Commander, I don't think I've ever seen somebody actually play a card with Shadow, or maybe once or twice or something. And then we play, as mentioned, with Xantid Swarm being kind of more of a useful creature, and Hobagirpur's in the deck too for almost the same reason. We run creatures that you would kind of consider to be, I guess, fish in the old sense of the word. Not merfolk, but kind of hate bears. Hate bears would be another way to say it. Probably, yeah, hate bears is probably the best way to say it. Just because we're running so many creature tutors and they're low cost, so we run a lot of really effective ones. One of them is a Dryad Militant. That costs it's a hybrid green-white. It's a 1/1. And if an instant or sorcery would be placed into a graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. Now, this card, the instants and sorceries doesn't really affect us very much because we are largely a creature-based deck. We play them, but we're not trying to get use out of them repeatedly. We're not playing Storm or something. So, or any type of deck that's going to utilize its graveyard in some way. I mean, obviously this doesn't hit creatures, but it does hit mostly Storm decks or people that want to rinse and repeat with their counters or whatever. Then beyond that, we play a Containment Priest. Containment Priest is a 1 and a white, has Flash. It's a 2/2. And if a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile instead. This is just a big hoser card in Commander. There's a lot of decks that are seeking to put out large creatures that are, cheating them into play, and Containment Priest stops that. And we are playing all of our creatures fairly, not the most fair deck in the world, but we are, in fact, playing all of our creatures fairly, so it doesn't really hurt us very much. And then we're playing Gadok Teague. I can already feel the groans, but Gadok Teague is a green and all white for a 2/2. He's a legendary Kithkin. And spells with converted mana cost, non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater cannot be played. And cards with X in their mana cost cannot be played as well. We don't really have things in this deck that cost more than 4. We actually only have specifically 1 spell that does. And we have nothing that costs X. So Gadok Teague will be extremely painful for our opponents, and we will be relatively unscathed for his presence on the board. So he's quite useful for us here. And then we play Grand Abolisher, just so your opponents can't cast spells on your turn, or activated abilities, or they just can't interact with you on your turn. This deck doesn't really play anything really at instant speed because we play as a largely creature-based deck, so protecting ourselves on our own turn is fairly important. I guess beyond that, the deck has a few other win cons beyond the go wide, infinitely large creature strategy and ballista strategy. We run natural order into Craterhoof because we're playing so many low cost creatures. Putting out Craterhoof and just killing somebody. I feel like Craterhoof Behemoth, for anybody that doesn't know, but I feel like it has probably the most single-handed wins in games of Commander, probably. But it is I believe it costs 3 green and 5. It's a 5/5 with haste, and when it enters the battlefield, creatures get +X/+X, and trample, where X is the number of creatures you control. So if you have like 7 creatures out and you put out Craterhoof, all of a sudden you have 8. Now each creature gets +8/+8, and this can pretty much just wipe out anybody. You could alternatively natural order for Devoted Druid if that was necessary. So that works too. But they are natural order is kind of a nombo with both Gadok Teague and Containment Priests, as they will not facilitate that to happen. So it's something to keep in mind, but the option of running natural order into Craterhoof is probably just too good of an option. It's too powerful, so it's kind of hard not to. And then beyond that, the deck runs Beastmaster Ascension, which is a green and 2, not interrupted by Gadok Teague, of course. And whenever a creature attacks, you put a quest counter on it, and once you have 7 or more quest counters, creatures you control get +5/+5 or +6/+6, one of the two. This is, interestingly, this where obviously you can play it this straightforward way where you just kind of attack with 1 or 2 creatures a turn and then build up to the 7. Or alternatively, if you just attack with the 7 right away, you get all 7 quest counters and all your creatures give the buff from Beastmaster's Ascension. And like the 2 previous examples will not probably win the entire game. You won't be able to kill everybody on board, but you'll very easily be able to take out 1 person for sure, maybe 2. So I feel that they were worthy inclusions in the deck. And that is functionally the deck. It's pretty fast. It's relatively consistent too, because it's kind of a 2-card Monty deck. You're working with two card combos, and typically you're gonna. Most of the games you play, you're going to end up with one of them in your hand, at least one of the pieces, and then you kind of, hopefully you have a creature tutor or something, and then you just find out the other one, and then all of a sudden you're there. Relatively quick and painless, which is, effective in a green-white Selesnya type commander deck because you can't run the counters and things that you would most likely want to in a deck. So, yeah, pretty efficient. Not bad. I suggest anybody take a spin with it if they want to, and remember to keep your combos classy.